Hello. Okay, there we go. I think it should have audio now. I don't know why. Webcam. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I don't expect anyone to watch this, but I know there's a few people who have watched some of the readings I've uploaded for TU related things. This is actually just a very short article I've got to read for my actual school, and I've read it once quickly, and it seemed actually pretty relevant, so I thought I would just stream it in case someone else has heard of this piece or is just interested in listening to me read along with it. But yeah, the title of this piece is Social Media Platforms Are Failed Cities. Oh, I need to put headphones on. As the astronaut Dave Bowman, armed with a screwdriver, disconnects the murderous computer HAL in 2001 A Space Odyssey, the machine complains, "My mind is going. I can feel it. Please stop, Dave." Similarly, advocates for the alt-right Twitter clone Parler, oh, is it Parlay? It's probably Parlay, not Parler, but I don't know what people call it. Um, pulled Parlay kept on pleading that we're a town square, not a publication, as Google and Apple pulled Parlay's plug from their app stores, as Amazon later did from its cloud servers. Parlay's users then made their exodus to Gab and other dark corners of the internet. Days before, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and many others had banned these users, along with the sitting president of the US, to curtail the violence induced by their posts. Deplatforming is a term now used to refer to such bans. According to Google Ngrams, its use has increased sharply since 2013, skyrocketing in January 2021. Specifically, deplatforming involves revoking a user's access to his or her social media account and even making his or her past posts invisible to the public. What remains of @RealDonaldTrump on Twitter is an empty shell. On Facebook, the former president's last post from January 6, 2021, sticks to the top of his thread like a shameful stain. It escapes no one's attention that this deplatforming marks a historic turn in the political management of online content. The joint congressional hearing of Mark Zuckerberg, Sundar Pichai, and Jack Dorsey on March 25th was only the first of a long series deemed necessary in the aftermath of the Capitol attacks. Senators across the aisle agreed that something has to change, though they disagreed on what. In a surprising role inversion, conservatives advocated for free speech, and progressives for liability from these companies. For more liability from these companies. For decades, social media platforms shunned the latter by calling themselves town squares. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. Extending the town square metaphor. Long before Parler, Facebook employed urban metaphors to describe its services. Comparing itself to a public space seems to be a useful way to absolve a social media company from responsibility for its content. Yet it provides an excuse only to the extent to which an urban planner can be excused for the social mayhem taking place in a dysfunctional city. There is, in fact, more to the urban metaphor than Mark Zuckerberg may suspect. Much like a city, the contemporary internet is full of communities, ghettos, firewalls and market squares, main streets and secret passages, craftsmen's Git workshops and VIP reception halls, secretive bank vaults, brownfields and junkyards, gambling saloons and brovels, power strongholds and dens of subversion. The main difference between the physical city and its noospheric extension is that the internet became a thing only in the early 1990s. Cities emerged in the Fertile Crescent more than 6,000 years ago. In other words, humans have more experience in organizing cities than in managing cyberspace. Thus, should we ask, what takeaways from our urban background are useful in our new online existential realm? In the recent history of our 300,000-year-old species, we have experimented with militarized city-states, theocratic citadels, capitals of empires, feudal fortresses, suffocating industrial peripheries, and to this day with suburban sprawl, in which people, this author really likes for long lists, in which people commute between their neurotic villas and business district jobs, closed to the world in 2-ton metal cocoons on wheels that we call cars. Most urbanists today agree that sprawl is a terrible mistake, yet social media platforms imitate it to a great extent. Like sprawl dwellers, their users rarely meet different people by chance, as happens to anyone who walks in dense and mixed urban settings, but usually only by choice. Connecting to social media is the digital equivalent of driving downtown, and while the sprawl dweller hybridizes with a driving machine, the social media user hybridizes with an electric communication device. What do you mean hybridizes? I guess we mean the suburbanite is like a hybrid between urban and rural. It's weird. I thought they meant hybrid cars or something because of a driving metaphor. I guess yeah. I guess it's just this in between space of seclusion and being surrounded by people. Um, in the former case, one becomes a honking centaur incapable of lateral movement. In the latter case, a text and image spreading content generator devoid of smell and touch. In sum, two phenomena characterize both sprawl and the contemporary internet: non-exposure to otherness and a frightening reduction of embodiment. Urban mixity and a cybernetic approach to AI. Foreclosure and sameness in the physical world results mostly from economic segregation processes, sometimes from overt discrimination by the real estate market. It can be leveraged by state funding of low-income housing, such as France's Loi Solidarité et Renouvellement Urbain from 2002, or by policies such as the U.S.'s Fair Housing Act of 1968. Dismantling such policies has been a central endeavor of Trumpism. In social media, segregation occurs by confinement in so-called echo chambers. They are the direct result of a theoretical, and to some degree ideological, posture of a subfield of artificial intelligence called machine learning, ML. Most ML algorithms are self-training classifiers. They slice up the world into groups of similar individuals based on a set of variables describing each person: sex, age, geolocation, frequencies of specific words and social posts, and so on. The aim of a classification algorithm is to minimize intra-group variance and to maximize intergroup variance. Once classified, individuals see more posts from users in their group and are targeted with group-specific ads, hyperlinks, and forum invitations. Such exposure affects their worldview, finally making them captive of a statistically delimited mindset. In cybernetic theory, this is called positive feedback, which despite the name is considered a very bad thing. So I've already read this once, and I know it's going to get into a lot. They're going to unpack this in cybernetic terms, but I'm also because I've been reading classification struggles from Bourdieu recently. Something I'm thinking about in terms of AI and classification is that it's a kind of, and this will very much fit in with the cybernetic theory that he's going to unpack, I believe, and that would be interesting to compare about. But we can also view this as a kind of performative classification, the way Bourdieu invokes like J.L. Austin's theory of performativity in language, and that like the by segmenting people into these silos or social media spheres, they on the basis of whatever the algorithm, like sex, age, geolocation, frequencies of specific words in social posts, and so on. It's not; these are not just natural categories in exactly the same way that the botanist might find natural categories in plants that we're classifying, but by um, algorithmically siloing people of these according to these measures together on the social media platforms, they're actually constructing the categories by reinforcing a certain kind of communication and group identity between people. I'm going to continue reading, but in cybernetic theory, this is called positive feedback, which despite the name is considered a very bad thing. The cybernetically inspired psychologists of the Palo Alto School, for instance, speak of symmetrical escalation when they analyze mismanaged conflicts. Cybernetics emerged just after World War II as an interdisciplinary science that strove to understand and promote systematic equilibria. Its main figures included Norbert Norbert, I'm going to say Wiener, Warren McCulloch, and Walter Pitts, the inventors of neural networks. Their idea of AI was that of a system of systems that keeps itself in a state of dynamic equilibrium by means of negative feedback. As the temperature rises, a thermostat lowers the heat of radiators and vice versa. Or, as a toilet fills up, a floater closes the incoming water valve and reopens it as the toilet empties. Cybernetic AI is conceived in terms of interaction of multiple systems. In Niklas Luhmann's theory of social systems, individuals are not in any way central. Cybernetic AI is a collective intelligence. It is comparable to what Aristotle called phronesis, or practical wisdom. The intelligence of machine learning algorithms employed in our social media is only the individual smartness of self-made classifiers. They excel at a specific task, but ignore the broader context. In psychiatric terms, they are obsessive maniacs. To leverage social segregation on the internet, we should take a hint from cybernetics and find out a means of algorithmic reinforcement using negative feedback loops in public conversation. This would contribute to political self-regulation and dynamic stability. Concretely, this could be implemented, for instance, by exposing a user to opinions from people closer to the other side. In other words, those different from his or hers but close enough to stir reflection instead of defensive aggression. In the multidimensional space of social variables, people should be exposed to content posted by others situated between themselves and the center of gravity of the whole social spectrum, rather than to posts of individuals farther out on the extremes. Cities and laws. When spontaneous self-regulation fails, societies need explicit laws, and the first written laws emerged in large cities. Current legislation of social media platforms set us back to the times of Sumerian king Ur-Nammu, ruler of Ur, Eridu, and Uruk. In 2100 BC, his scribes edited the oldest conserved law code on clay tablets. They specify, for instance, that if a man is accused of sorcery, he must undergo ordeal by water. If he is proven innocent, his accuser must pay 3 shekels. Much like the terms of service of a social media platform, Ur-Nammu's laws were few but strangely specific. Much like Ur-Nammu's laws, Twitter's and Facebook's terms of service are designed by a small elite exercising the power of life and death by cancellation. Like life and death in Minecraft, over the citizens of their worlds. Meanwhile, many antique city-states have evolved into democratic nations. The question is how to lead social media on a similar path. The answer is both political and technical. Some weeks before his imprisonment on January 10, 2021, Alexei Navalny called upon platforms to create a more transparent judiciary process, appointing oversight boards whose decisions could be appealed. Facebook did set one up by the end of 2020. On May 6, 2021, it decided to ban Trump for an extra 6 months. While appreciable, the procedure remains a PR stunt. The sheer quantity of posts on the platform makes concrete appeals to Facebook's oversight board only possible in high-profile cases. For the rest of us, the platform's systems of governance outsource their executive tasks to algorithms. These algorithms are currently secret, but one could envision a better use of the new possibilities offered by the numeric realm. Leaning on well-established frameworks of open-source development, legislators could coerce online platforms into publishing their algorithms and training datasets for detection of hate speech and other prohibited content on a Git repository. Refusing to disclose such datasets on grounds of privacy issues is not an acceptable argument, especially when posts are already public on their respective platforms. The code of the algorithm would then become transparent and collaborative. If geocultural context is taken into account in the detection of unacceptable speech, this, too, would become explicit and subject to global debate. Social media platforms should then be required to apply these algorithms indiscriminately on all content, regardless of the social status of the account's owners. Again, the benefits of such a collaborative stance are well informed by our society's decades-long experience in participatory urban planning. Social media and embodiment. Finally, one more important urban feature is the fact that cities are congregations of human bodies. They are sites of multimodal interaction in which sociality emerges on a daily basis, achieved by mutual perception, mirroring, and everyday rituals, described, for instance, by the sociologist Irving Goffman. The embodiment of human experience provides a common ground. Despite all differences appearing in verbal and a fortiori written arguments, the bodily movement, facial expression, gaze, and tone of voice provide a fundamental sense of others as human beings like ourselves. Most of us have experienced the benefit of resolving conflicts face-to-face or through a phone call rather than via email or text messages. During the current, this is like a shadow reference to McCullen, over a phone call rather than email or text messages. During the current pandemic, this fundamental access to our congeners has been, it's a weird, what is a congener? That's not right, not alcohol. This is not what we're looking for. It's gotta be an alternate definition. A thing or person of the same kind or category as another. Okay, congenus, yeah. During the current pandemic, this fundamental access to our congeners has been throttled to an extent, which accounts for a large set of psychological problems, including the exacerbation of conflicts on social media. We have been reduced to bodiless avatars arguing in a digital space. The scale of physical violence of the recent collective outbursts on both sides of the political spectrum and around the world, anti-police, anti-mask, anti-vax, anti-confinement, anti-government, can easily be interpreted as natural reactions to this condition. According to the philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty, our embodied experience of the world gives us access to specific understanding, to a specific meaning of the world. A lack of meaning induces psychological distress. If we imagine that the current pandemic situation persists or returns in future pandemics, social media might well be the only substitute to an embodied urban experience. But it does a very poor job of that. Instead of giving each of us access to others as human beings, these platforms allow them to appear as an incoherent thread of stubborn outcries. The search for a more embodied exchange could explain the investment in Clubhouse, a voice-based social platform, or the astounding success of TikTok among younger people. The millions of views of the Wellerman sea shanty provide a moving example of a digital substitute to our need to share a common voice, our need to feel that we are together in the current crisis. That our greatest gift to one another as a species is the embodied expression of our common hopes and inspirations. The emerging technologies of augmented reality should be considered in the design of future digital public spaces. Toward a civilized social media. Both cities and cyberspaces are material organizations. The city is one of the most ancient forms of AI, an objective formal structure designed for the convergence of human thought and actions towards a common good. In Aristotle's Politics, so that's an interesting definition of AI right there. It seems like we're offering a definition of AI, but because they're saying the city is is the most ancient form of AI. How so? It's an objective formal structure designed for the convergence of human thoughts and actions towards a common good. So one thing that's interesting, they have or definitely they have a Aristotelian definition of the city, or the polis is what we're working with here. And but is that what AI is? Is AI an objective formal structure designed for the convergence of human thoughts and actions towards a common good? I guess does who thinks that actually? I don't know. That's like just such a it's 7. I'll have to check. Oh, les intelligences artificielles de la nature. Okay, so that might be an interesting reference to check out because I'm not sure that I can agree with this definition of AI, whether we mean like actual large language model kind of AI as it actually exists in through development of machine learning now, or if we want to talk about the kind of AI that you is exemplified in the maybe by a city, or because what we're talking about here is like I'm thinking of like the Landian definition of AI as like as self-alienated capital, and the the retroactive commodity form of labor imposing itself for the towards the relentless pursuit of surplus value, blah blah, like because that's how I think of AI in terms of like the polis or the city, in which case like so I want it's there's a lot to unpack there too, because they're coming from this kind of urban planning perspective, which is why they're identifying the earliest form of AI with the city rather than just like the development of society. Because like is there an implicit claim here that like society did not exist prior to the city, or like or even or more I guess the claim would be like that human community doesn't exist besides before the city, because that just clearly seems incorrect. But I think rather the point is that there's a particular form of community that develops out of the city because of the way the city or structures and organizes our embodiedness, in the way that like by channeling in this kind of cybernetic sense embodied interactions and relations between people through this like artificial geography, the geography of the city is a kind of different, and so that's a kind of different geography than like human communities dealt with in hunter-gatherer communities prior to cities. Because you can still make the argument that hunter-gatherers, that the community that hunter-gatherers had constituted a form of AI or artificial intelligence through like whatever kind of social practices um, that they practiced, which resulted in the alienation of the social will. Or what? There's a lot of rabbit holes to go down there, but I'm going to keep reading. In Aristotle's Politics, that supreme good made possible by the organization of the polis was a virtuous life. The common good of modern cities, described, for instance, in Lewis Worf's seminal paper Urbanism as Way of Life, is not a specific objective, but rather the very possibility of existential invention and reinvention. The modern city concentrates a great diversity of people and amenities, allowing exponentially as many combinations of interactions. So not just the geography of the city, but the concentration too is something they're focusing on because of the it just increases the raw number of interactions and not just the number, but the number of combinations. So you have qualitatively different interactions because of the diversity of the kinds of people contained within the city. Its multi-story architecture pushes the limits of densification. There we get back into the geography though. Its transportation infrastructure further facilitates transition between contexts of interactions. Yeah, so back to the Merleau-Ponty quote. At the same time, the city differentiates these contexts, partitioning space, creating as many opportunities to deploy diverse aspects of one's embodied self. The urban dweller is a plural individual. Distinct places inhabited at distinct times partition thought processes and regimes of social engagement, giving space even to one's inner contradictions. As a realm escaping individual control, the city also provides serendipity, exposure to situations one does not seek, but that give an unexpected and often beneficial turn to one's life. The city, in sum, is a collective machine for living a complex existence. Insofar as its structure becomes the object of political deliberation, it is a conscious machine. Designers of microchips imitate urbanists by maximizing the number of transistors per surface area, densifying logical processes, speeding up data transformation. But the microchip never reinvents itself. Its purpose is predefined. So is the purpose of social media, designed for the maximization of engagement with ads, for classifying and forging profiles of product consumers. This teleological confinement is at the heart of all that currently separates social media platforms from physical cities. Like cities, social media platforms provide opportunities for interaction, though they do so in a manner oriented toward the private profits of their owners. They can only become better algorithmic cities if the common good becomes their primary focus. We have given some suggestions on how to achieve this in this article. True exposure to otherness, technological development of embodiment, transparency, political reflexivity. There are certainly many other aspects yet to be defined to try out. This will happen whether or not private companies want it, as legislatures around the globe prepare to act. Parliaments of nation-states still possess strong leverage, such as antitrust laws and pending decisions over laws protecting social media platforms from liability for their content. This does not need to be seen as a limitation of social media, but rather as an effort to transform it into an effective extension of the city, the civitas, a civilized space of cohabitation. Acknowledgements. This piece has been written in the scope of the project Reimagining Artificial Intelligence, towards establishing a sociological conception of AI, financed by the Swiss National Science Foundation. Alright, thank you. I'm sorry that I am so miserably sick right now, but I got through anyways. And goodbye.